Alright, shitty day yesterday. Not much to say, honestly. I really thought Auburn would be a significantly worse team without their superstar, but clearly the jungle is just too hard of a place to play. Mississippi State looked shell-shocked pretty much that entire game. They looked okay down the stretch, but you could tell Auburn was just turning off uh, the ignition a bit, so not a great side to be on that game, but it is what it is. Miami, Ohio uh, was close, but they ended up running away with the game a bit later. But it was a bit closer than I wanted it to be for most of that game. Florida, man, what to say about Florida? This does not look like the same team that destroyed Tennessee at all, especially at home. They ended up losing this game outright. Um, Basically, the first like 5-10 minutes of the game, Missouri just got off to like a 25-point lead, just draining threes nonstop, stealing the ball. And Florida pretty much spent the entire game just slowly chipping away at that lead, and then just came short by one. So bad time to be on Florida, I guess. I guess it was a bit of a letdown spot after the Tennessee game. Um, yeah, Wisconsin is probably the most frustrating game of all five. Yeah, they went into half up 17, and they won the game by one. So just complete collapse after halftime. Usually it's the home team that makes those comebacks, but they just let Ohio State dominate them on both sides of the ball for some reason. And Texas Tech, God, I really liked this game too. They were the better team. They kept going on little runs, up 8, up 10, up 12, but they just could not hold a lead, and they end up winning by I think 4 points. So one possession sucks, but we take a small L day. Hopefully we bounce back today, and let's get into it. All right, game number one. We have NC State heading on the road to visit Virginia Tech. So I look at this game, and NC State's honestly been a pretty good team this year. And Virginia Tech's kind of been struggling. Virginia Tech is 7-9. NC State is 9-7. But when I look at what these two teams like to do, I think this is a great spot for NC State on the road here. So if you look at what NC State likes to do, they like to sit in the paint. They are 25th in the league in where they score their points, closest to the basket, so they usually just sit literally right around the net. And that is typically a spot where Virginia Tech struggles the most. They're not a very big team. They're ranked 271st in defending the paint. So I would expect NC State to be able to realistically dominate in the paint. They'll probably get to the free throw line a lot, which they probably will. They're 67th in free throw attempts in the league. They're pretty average free throw percentage team, 70%. And then if you look a bit further, they have to get points off steals. They're 93rd in the nation. Virginia Tech is 190th in giving up turnovers, so they should get some bonus points there. Virginia Tech has played a slightly worse, harder schedule, but NC State has performed much better. I have NC State as a ranked 75th team in the nation, and Virginia Tech is 130th. So a pretty significant gap between two teams. Really, the only thing Virginia Tech has going for them is their home advantage, but I think this mismatch might be too much for them against a really consistent paint team like NC State. If you look at the other side of the ball, Virginia Tech likes to shoot basically all their shots are mid-range and threes. A lot more mid-range than threes, though. And they get some points off second chance opportunities. And if you look at the matchup, NC State is actually the 17th best team against the mid-range shot. So Virginia Tech's not already a very good mid-range team, but they're going to be going up against an incredible mid-range defense. It's really going to come down to the three ball. Virginia Tech is ranked 118th in three-point percentage. NC State's 161st in three-point defense. So, and they're both equally matched on the boards. So I don't know. When I look at this game, I don't see a world where NC State plays that bad on the road. They haven't really played that bad on the road at all this year. So yeah, I think NC State is going to win this game outright. So move on to the next one. Game number two, I have St Bonaventure at home with Richmond coming over to visit. So this is a rare spot for this Bonnie's team that have basically been dominating this entire year. They're 14-3 on the season, and two of their losses have come in their last two games. On the road, I think this is a phenomenal spot to finally back them again. They were an incredible ATS team, still one of the best ATS teams in the nation. And now that they're finally getting a bounce back spot, which they haven't really had, they've just been riding off momentum. I think against a Richmond team that has had a awful offense this year, um, is probably going to struggle to get points. And the Bonnies, motivated to get back in the win column, are going to be playing really, really hard at home. Um, when I look at the matchup here, St. Bonnie's are just one of the most efficient teams in basketball. They're 82nd in field goal percentage, 138th in three-point percentage, 91st in near basket, 64th on mid-range, 40th in points off steal, and 39th in second chance opportunities. So they score a lot. They're pretty efficient no matter where they're shooting. Even if they get to the free throw line, they're pretty efficient there, 75%. And they like to shoot mostly mid-range shots, which doesn't necessarily bode too well because that's what Richmond defends the best. But I think they are perfectly comfortable shooting their other shots, which they shoot at a much higher clip anyway. So the way I see it, if we're forcing them to take other shots, it's probably better because I hate the mid-range shot anyway. And Bonnie's play really slowly, really calculated. On the other side of the ball, Bonnie's rank 52nd in holding their opponents to much lower field goal percentage, and Richmond is 311th in field goal percentage. So even if Bonnie's can't get off the shots that they typically like to, I think this Richmond team, who is just being really bad, they're only going to get shots in the paint, and they're not going to get very many second chance opportunities because they don't really do that. And they're a great free throw shooting team. They're sixth in the nation in free throw percentage, but Bonnies are ranked 11th in fouling, so Richmond really won't get that many free points on the line. I just think Bonnies have been one of those teams. They're due for some regression, but I think that regression hit in the last two games. I think they're due for a bounce back game at home. I think they can win this game by 12.5 comfortably. So yeah, give me Bonnies 12.5 at home favorites. All right, game number 3, we have Southern Miss going on the road to visit South Alabama as 11.5 road dogs. So when I look at this game, I think South Alabama has been a super underrated team this year. I have them ranked, top 150-ish, but they've been playing much better than that. So I think you could say they're due for regression, but I also think they're just an underrated team. If you look at where they like to shoot, they like to shoot threes, they like to get points off steals, and that's basically where they score. Now, on the other side, South Alabama is at a bit of a disadvantage. They don't shoot the three that well, but they shoot a lot in near basket, and they get a lot of points off steals, and those are two things that this Southern Miss team just can't seem to stop. They're 316th in near basket defense and 281st in points off steals, so they give over a lot of turnovers. And against the South Alabama team that ranks, one of the slowest teams in the nation, are going to be extremely meticulous and really piss off the Southern Miss team. They're going to get all out of whack. They like to play much faster, but South Alabama is going to, fully control the pace of this game. And I think it's going to be a super frustrating matchup where Southern Miss is going to get clobbered. South Alabama keeps their opponents to 31st percentile. 31st in the nation at field goal percentage. So I don't know. The Southern Miss team is not very good in the Sun Belt against a South Alabama team that has, dominated some decent teams this year. If you look at their most recent games, we're finally getting South Alabama off a loss. If you look at the last times they've lost games, they lost to, most recently, they lost to Texas Christian on the road. And then after they went back home and they completely dominated James Madison, a pretty respectable team by 28 points. And now, we're having in a similar situation where you're, losing a game to Old Dominion, who you should be beating every single time at home. You have the Southern Miss team that's going on the road, where they typically lose a lot of their games. This is the Southern Miss team lost to James Madison by 11. South Alabama beat them by 28, and now they're matching up against each other as short favorites while South Alabama's at home. Yeah, I think this is a great spot to back the South Bams. I think they can cover this decently big spread. All right, heading into game number 4. I really like Illinois State in the road dog spot. They're probably, if not the best team, as playing as away underdogs. They're 4-0 as away underdogs against the spread, and they're 8-1 in general as underdogs. So they seem to really show up to big games. where they're expected to get crushed. And on the other side of the ball, this Drake team plays much worse when they're favorite. They're actually 3-6 as a favorite and 3-4 against the spread as home favorites. So, I think it's a great spot for this Illinois State catching 10.5 points. Um, I think they've been a pretty good team this year. If you look at their matchup as well, they're going to have chances to score. And Drake plays at a really slow pace. Illinois also plays at a pretty slow pace. So 10.5 points in what I'm expecting to be a pretty low scoring game. It's a lot of points to ask for an Illinois State that's pretty good. Actually, much better on the offensive side than Drake has been. Obviously, Drake is kind of known more as a defensive team, but if you look at their matchups, Illinois State has a 68 best field goal percentage in the nation. They're 12th best at threes, 44th in mid range, 97th in near basket, and they shoot a shit ton of threes. They shoot a lot of mid range, and obviously they don't get any points off of second chance or steals, but historically they haven't. They make their shots, so there's just a lot less opportunity there. If you look at the other side of the ball, this Drake team, they shoot a lot of near basket shots, and they'll probably have a lot of success in the paint. But when I look at a team that's going to be shooting a lot of near basket shots compared to a team that's going to be shooting a lot of threes, 10.5 is a lot to ask. Even if Illinois State makes half as many threes as Drake does twos, this ends up being a pretty close game. And Illinois State doesn't really give up a lot of second chance opportunities either, so Drake's going to have to play really hard. And Illinois State's playing a really hard schedule. I think 10.5 is way too much to ask for this Drake team that's been really inconsistent this year. If you look at their most recent games, we have this Drake team that's coming off of two wins, two solid wins against decent teams. I would say Evansville's a decent team, but they did clobber them. And then you have this Illinois State that is coming off two losses. I think this is a great spot for a letdown for Drake, and a bounce back spot for Illinois State. The last time they lost 2 games in a row, Illinois State went to win 4 games straight. I think this team does not like to lose, and I don't think this is going to be a massive home edge for a Drake team that hasn't necessarily played that great at home. I have them as the 100th best team in home rating. It's from team rankings, and Illinois State 112th in away rating. So I think it's going to be a much closer game than the line suggests. Give me Illinois State as a road dog. All right, game number 5 today. This is going to be a really fun game to watch. We've got Texas heading on the road to Oklahoma. And these are two pretty solid SEC teams, but I do think Oklahoma has been playing way over their head for that record, and Texas has been playing a bit more poorly. But if you look at just straight up stats, not even looking into detailed stats, Texas is 38th in offense efficiency to Oklahoma's 102nd in defense efficiency, and Oklahoma is 29th to Texas's 59th in defense efficiency. So I think the gap here between offense and defense is much better for Texas. And if you look at where these teams like to score, it even further exacerbates why I like Texas in this spot. So look at Texas, they like to shoot mid-range and near basket. That's pretty much it. They'll sometimes shoot some threes, they'll get points off steals. And if you look at the matchup, they're 56 in mid-range percentage to Oklahoma's 205th in three-point mid-range defense. They're 50th in near basket to Oklahoma's 192nd in near basket. The only thing that Oklahoma defends well is the three, and that's a shot that Texas shoots the least of all of their shots. And if they do have to shoot them, if they ever have an open three, they're 35th in the nation in three-point percentage. So Oklahoma isn't just going to be able to defend. Kind of want to let them take threes. They're going to probably struggle here. I think Texas is a really balanced offense, and they're going to find ways to get points here. Look at the other side, Oklahoma. They like to shoot near basket and three-point shots. Near basket, Texas is the 5th best near basket defense in the entire league. I think they're going to struggle there. They're 39th in near basket percentage. And they also like to get points off of steals as well. The 24th in the nation of points off steals. But Texas takes care of the ball. They're 9th in points allowed from steals in the entire nation. They also don't give up a lot of second chance opportunities. I think this is a Texas team that's starting to really figure out their groove. They started out, kind of questionable this year. Yeah, if you look at their most recent games, both of them, you got Oklahoma, who's finally hitting that regression that I was expecting. They played a bunch of shitty teams to get this incredible record, and now they're on a three-loss streak. Um, and they beat Prairie View, Central Arkansas, Alcorn State, Texas A&M Commerce, Stetson. These are all bottom 300 teams. And whenever they have to kind of step up to the competition, other than the game against Arizona and Michigan, they've kind of been getting clobbered now that they're starting to play, stretches of. They lost to Alabama. They got crushed by Alabama at 28 points. They lost to Texas A&M. They lost to Georgia. On the other side, obviously, Texas is coming off two losses, but these are arguably the two best teams in the league, or two of the best teams. They lost to Auburn, which was only a 5 point game, and they lost to Tennessee, which was a 4 point game. And they're also coming off Texas A&M loss. So they're coming off three really tough losses. Now they have an Oklahoma team that's also on the downturn that has had a really easy schedule up till now. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. I just think Texas matches up better against Oklahoma team. Maybe Texas as the road dog as 2.5 underdogs. All right, so I'm going to start replacing the summary because it's kind of redundant to summarize it in like a short video like this. So these are all the other games in college basketball that I'm betting on the day, and I'll give you a very quick reason why, not as in depth as the other five. But Dayton, they're coming off a tough loss, going back home against a Georgia Mason team that I think is due for some regression. Dayton's been a really good team this year, and they've been in a bit of a slump. So I just think they're going to come back home in a big way and cover this decently short spread. Stanford, this is a weird line. Like Wake Forest is a very good team, but Stanford is just I think much bigger than they are. They have the 7'1" uh, center who's just going to probably get a lot of free points and rebounds in the paint. This Wake Forest team is a bunch of small guards. Yeah, I think this number is a little bit too steep for a Stanford team that likes to play harder competition. They definitely play up, and they also play down. So I hate taking them as favorites, but I love taking them as dogs. Butler, okay, this is a disgusting game, and I think the line is trying to tell us something. You got a Butler team that's on a 9 game losing streak at home against a Seton Hall team that's kind of just starting to bounce back. They beat, I can't remember who they beat, but they beat a team that plays really well at home, and they beat them straight up in their first conference win. I just think Seton Hall is really bad offensively this year, and this Butler team needs a win, and this is like this is a great spot for them to finally get in the win column. I think the way that Seton Hall finally got a conference win a couple games ago, this is going to be the same spot for Butler to completely dominate this game. Like analytically, they're the much better team, even if they've lost 9 in a row. I think they have to win this game. So if you're giving me 6.5, I'm going to take it. I think this line might have moved to 7.5. I don't know if I would bet it, but if it drops back down, I would definitely take it. Samford for Butler, two teams that don't play any defense, that play at an extremely high pace, and they're both pretty efficient. So they're both due for positive regression. So typically that means they're going to start hitting a bit more shots. So I like the spot for both of them. I think this is going to be a shootout kind of game. Yeah, Michigan State, they're one of the best first half teams in basketball. They seem to let teams in if they have a massive lead, so I don't really like taking their big full spreads that often. But I think they show up here and just completely dominate this Penn State team that honestly I think has looked really bad. And now they're going into against one of, in my opinion, a top 10 team in basketball right now. This Michigan State team is just incredible. They're big, they're strong. They're going to dominate the paint and the boards. They're going to get a lot of free baskets. They're just so efficient, and they're also great defensively. So I think they, like they always do, they show up early on in these games and they cover this short 6.5 point first half spread. Troy, I just think this is a mismatch. This Troy team is just much better than ULM. Uh, they don't like no one. There's no ULM fans. I don't think the stadium gives a big edge to them. I think Troy shows up here and probably wins this game by 20. ULM could just win the game outright, but I think if Troy does win, it's going to be in blowout fashion. And finally, Tennessee versus Georgia. These are two teams due for a lot of negative regression. They both play at extremely grindy paces, and both their defenses kind of lead them to win these games. They both have been in a lot of under games recently. I just think this is going to be this Tennessee team that just got absolutely destroyed by Florida is going to be playing extremely hard on both sides of the ball. And Georgia team who loves to play tougher opponents to prove that they should be in that same conversation as these other ranked teams. is also going to step up big time. And realistically, try to say, hey, I'm a ranked team too. I can stop your offense. And again, Tennessee's a decent offensive team, but that's not really what they're known for. They're known to be a defensive powerhouse. And I think Georgia can handle them on the offensive side. So, you know, Tennessee they have the potential to drop like 23s in a game, but I don't think that's going to happen today. It's going to be a slow, extremely defense based, shooting right before the shot clock type of game. So I'm on the under 134.5. And those are the games that I'm on today. If you have any questions, leave them down below. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you tomorrow.